This is the Mount Hua sect, the most renowned among the 9 ancient sects, and I am a third-generation disciple of that very sect. My name is Baek Un-ho. My day at Mount Hua starts a bit earlier than normal. As expected, no one's around. Being weaker and with less inner strength, I can't afford to slack off, otherwise, I'll never be able to keep up with the others. That's why I have to absorb the pure energy of Mount Hua into my core. This kid, always muttering to himself. Jang Kwang, you're here. I was abandoned at a young age and was fortunate to become a disciple of Mount Hua, hence, I get such treatment from my peers. What's the point of a talentless guy like you studying martial arts? Stop your nonsense and get lost. Hey, Kwang, don't be too harsh. Un-ho just saved our spots for us. The red hair boy is Jang Kwang, and the white hair boy is Lee Jun-hyung. They are the third-generation disciple Mount Hua sects. Keep it up, Un-ho. Your plan is to join Pyeonguk, right? If you can't get a job, let me know. I can arrange a spot for you at our family's Pyeonguk. You're too kind, Jun-hyung. Do you think that a loser can handle a job at a Pyeonguk? He lacks talent, connections, parents, and even skill. In some ways, he's perfectly lacking. It's okay. We are all third-generation disciples after all. It may seem like Jang Kwang is the one mocking and tormenting me, but the real bully is Lee Jun-hyung. On the surface, he pretends to care about me to boost his reputation, but the reality is, he manipulates Jang Kwang to make my life miserable. Furthermore, he's the son of the sect leader, from one of the top 3 families in the Mount Hua sect, and his uncle is Mount Hua's elder, the famed swordsman, Lee Jin-seop. He's been consuming a special elixir since childhood, possessing 20 years' worth of inner strength, and was in his constitution something called bright nourishing body. He's the complete opposite of me. Thanks, Jun-hyung. You're welcome. Oh, I heard today's breakfast is my favorite, so I'm counting on you, alright? Hey, Baek Un-ho, you know it's your turn to clean the kitchen tonight, right? Don't forget it, huh? Did you just say huh? Do you want trouble? No, it's just, Jun-hyung asked me to clean the shrine today. Sigh, that's simple. Just clean the kitchen and then the shrine. Honestly, kid, you lack foresight. So sorry, I didn't think of that. Then start thinking, and how long do you plan on apologizing? If you know you're wrong, just do better, huh? I'll be more careful next time. I'm finished cleaning the kitchen and the sun has already set. Another night with little to no sleep. I heard that in some sects, if you clean diligently, you can receive blessings. Shouldn't I be getting such blessings too? Come to think of it, Monk Gong-yang-so's shrine is shining the brightest. After all, who in Mount Hua doesn't revere Monk Gong-yang-so? Monk Baek Gong-yang-so is the very essence of the current Mount Hua. He was nicknamed 10,000 Travels due to his troubled youth, but he never gave up and eventually achieved greatness. To someone like me, he's nothing less than hope. So someday, I too will swing a sword like that. Soon the night falls and we saw the boy training in an empty field under the glowing moon. He was swinging his sword that left trails of blue light all over his body, and amidst his training he heard a Vyochi calling for him from his behind. He was surprised and turned around and asked the person, "Who are you?" In response the person smiled and say, "Who am I?" "I'm the Supreme Master, Mong Won-kyung." "No, the world's greatest." The boy was surprised and asked the person if he is the unparalleled, Mong Won-kyung. And then the boy slaps his hand together and said to himself, "Ah, this is a dream." In response the person said, "Right, it's just a dream, but not just any dream, it's a Mong Won vision." The boy asked confusingly, "Mong Won vision?" But the person didn't give the time to think further and ordered him to now, pick up your sword. The boy was stunned and asked, "What?" But before he could understand anything that person moved forward and attacked him with lightning speed. He raised his sword reflexly in order to defend himself from the blow. Then he jumped backward with his legs and barely managed to save himself from the person below. Then he grabbed his sword in front of him with his 2 hands and clenched his teeth and looked at the person in front of him with vigilance. The person looked at the boy smilingly and asked, "Isn't this the blessing you've been wishing for?" And then he swung his sword toward our main character Un-ho and said, "This is a rare chance, so let's not waste this opportunity." And then they start sparring with each other. Then the scene changed, and we saw Un-ho waking up in the morning in his bed, pointing his hands towards the ceiling of the house, while making a face like he has gone through a night of hellish training. After waking up, he thought about the sparing lesson of last night that he had gone through with the Mong Won-kyung, and thought to myself that now he is even training in his dreams. Then look at his hands that is drenched with swats, and say to think it was the great Mong Won-kyung. If I had to have a dream like that, why not Monk Baek Un-ho so? Sign, I shouldn't be daydreaming now, today's the day Master Gong-chan teaches. Then we saw the training ground of the Mount Hua sects, where disciples are swinging their swords, while their sound are so great it can be heard from miles away. Ha, ha, ha. And amidst those disciples, our main corrector Un-ho, while removing the sweat of his face from the training, heard the Master Gong-chan, talking to the white-haired Gye Lee Jun-hyung from earlier. Oh, Jun-hyung's here, having any trouble with training lately? I'm fine, thank you for your concern though. Un-ho thought to himself, Master Gong-chan, although we are referred to as third-generation disciples, it's more accurate to say that we are the candidates. Candidates like us would undergo basic training without an appointed master. And then later on, we'd either get selected by the elites to become official third-generation disciples, or if not, then we are demoted to an inner disciple. Therefore, lectures by elite masters, like today's, are extremely crucial, especially for someone like me who has no place to go back to. Hyon, you just arrived, your complexion doesn't look good, you should have rested more, come to me if you're having any difficulties. I apologize. She is the Mount Hua sect's third-generation disciple Gong-chan. That's why the one I chose is Master Gong-chan, even though he looks more lenient than other third-generation disciples. Then the teacher called out a boy beside Un-ho. Hey, the fatso in the third row. Hearing that, the boy turned around and asked the teacher, confusingly pointing a finger toward his face. What, is it me? Yes, you. How dare you chat during class? You might be more useful cleaning for your fellow disciples than staying in this swordsmanship class. Go clean the male toilet now. Un-ho thought to himself, he's lenient only to those who he deems deserving, which lead to him not becoming popular among everyone. Then we saw the boy had been shouting angry in the side. I'd rather leave than be his disciple. Then he swung his sword and said, however, that means there's a chance for me. Then he heard a voice calling out to him from behind, Baek Un-ho. Then he smiled and thought to himself, that's a good sign, that he remembered my name. But in the next moment we saw the teacher grabbing his shoulder from behind and asking him, you, who told you to swing your sword like that? Then Un-ho stopped abruptly, and thought in his mind, I'm doomed. And then he think about the vision of Mong Won-kyung who had trained him with the sword and think, is this the effect of last night's dream? He thought, even if I was seen as someone lacking talent, I always tried my best and followed instructions. But the next moment he heard the instructor toking, you're not a total lost cause. After hearing his words he just stupidly stared at him, and just one word come out of his mouth, your swordsmanship has improved. He thought to himself, is that praise? He hadn't expected this completely unexpected turn-off event from Master Gong-chan, who never gives praises. Then he heard the instructor say, if you're lacking in strength, then that's how you should use your sword. Did the atmosphere change for a moment just now? But when he turned around, he saw the instructor talking with the white-haired Gye Jun-hyung. Well done, swordsmanship should be like that. Truly worthy of being Grandmaster Lee Jin-seop's nephew. You've always been considered a prodigy since you were young. Everyone, stop and learn from what Jun-hyung is doing. Then he thought to himself, am I mistaken? Then we saw the white-haired boy Jun-hyung swing his sword in front of everyone to demonstrate his sword skills, while everyone looked at him intently. In other hand, our MC Un-ho was amazed by his skills, and murmured in his heart, wow, what's that sound? It's like breaking the air. If our swords clashed, mine would just shatter. Then we saw the girl from earlier, practicing her sword skills besides the white-haired boy. White looking at that girl, Un-ho thought, that girl is Kang Ah-hyen, the eldest daughter of the leader of the Crimson Guild at Mount Hua's Jade Maiden Peak. Among the disciples from the main peak, SHE has the best qualifications. SHE may not have a background as notable as Lee Jun-hyung, but she's not inferior in terms of pure skill. Indeed, she displayed remarkable skills against Lee Jun-hyung in a recent duel, but unfortunately lost due to stamina. While looking at them intently, Un-ho thought, if any of us were to become the master of the Plum Blossom line before Lee Jun-hyung, then it would probably be Kang Ah-hyen. He thought, Lee Jun-hyung, Kang Ah-hyen, compared to them, I'm utterly insignificant. Un-ho tightened his grip on the sword, and think to himself, can he ever become like the venerable Tisa Jo of Manryubo? Then, the scene shifted to another place, and we saw Un-ho was practicing his sword skills. While we hear a voice calling, "Impossible," then we saw the Mong Won-kyung was standing beside him. Un-ho looked at him in amazement, in response to him with, "What?" Then the Mong Won-kyung told him that it's impossible for him to become like that fellow from Gongyan. White Un-ho thought in his head, so, what's with this sudden development? After the training, I went to my room and laid on my bed. And now, the Grandmaster Mong Won-kyung from Jamujin is in front of me again, while the Mong Won-kyung is still talking to himself. By the way, I was wondering who this Baek Un-ho I've been hearing about was. Ganyan So, that guy, TSK. Un-ho thought, so this is a dream, enlightenment, I see. In response, Mong Won-kyung says, "Not a complete idiot, huh," and asked him, "How was the lesson that I gave you yesterday, was it very helpful today?" Hearing him, Un-ho thought in his head about the praise he get from the instructor, and replied, while bowing to him, "I'm truly grateful. I think I caught a little of Master Gongya Chan's attention thanks to it." Hearing his words, Mong Won-kyung said with pride, "Of course, when someone teaches and the student has the eyes to see, it's only natural." Then he pointed his sword toward him and said, "Now, draw your sword. From now on, we will train every night, until your potential blooms to the fullest." Raised his sword in front of him. While we can see a ray of blue sword light in his eyeballs, that is getting closer to him. Un-ho moved sideways to avoid the attack. Seeing this, Mong Won-kyung said to him, "Not bad." But the next moment he laughed maniacally and shouted, "Then try to stop this too." Un-ho lowered his head to dodge and think in his mind, "I understand. This is different from a martial arts fight among the three great disciples. It's a sword attack that asks me, 'What will you do?' And I answer his question. And answer again when he asks once more. While doing so he thinks that how fun the thing really is. To the point that I'm having fun, me, in martial arts. Until now, I've never felt fun in martial arts, it was just too obvious. Who finds fun in a means of survival? Even though my life is mundane, I practice martial arts so that I can live. But for some reason, at this moment, I feel like I'm experiencing a fun game for the first time since I was born. It's so much fun," and then their swords clashes and spark flow everywhere. Both of them continue to battle, and for Un-ho it's like dozens of questions and dozens of answers accumulate, and there is only one path visible within. He thought, no, perhaps he is just being greedy. He thought, nevertheless, can he do it? Grandmaster Mong Won-kyung smiled, and indicated to him to do what he wished to do. After receiving his confirmation he became more confident. Then, he swung his sword and said, "If I do it this way, what would the Grandmaster do?" While blocking the move, Grandmaster exclaimed, "Oh." After that he said, "Then I shall answer your question." After that we can only saw an image of Grandmaster swinging his sword in Un-ho's eyes. Then his sword flew by, and Grandmaster's sword pointed toward him while his eyes are closed. When the sword landed, its tip stuck into ground. Then the Grandmaster said to him, "Not bad." While Un-ho was shocked, he looks at his hand and then in the Grandmaster's direction and asks, What was that just now?" Grandmaster said to him while raising his sword, "What do you mean? That was the Napme sword you learned. You managed to notice even though I purposely lowered the execution of the sword technique to your level, didn't you, even if you were a bit slow?" After hearing this he thought to himself, it was. The difference was like a worm and a dragon though. Seeing this, Grandmaster said to him, "With that face you're making, it seems that you don't believe it, huh? But this is definitely the Napme sword you know of." But Un-ho, still confused, asked him how on earth is it possible. Grandmaster laughed and said to him, "It's easy to explain, but if I did it that way, then it wouldn't be fun or have any development." Then he pointed a finger in front of him and said, "All right, then, here's your homework. Figure out why this is the Napme sword. If you manage to do well, I'll give you a great reward." Hearing this, Un-ho asked, what reward?" But before he could ask further, Grandmaster flicked his finger in his forehead. And he was thrown out of his dream space, while looking at the Grandmaster's figure, who was murmuring to himself, "Unfortunately, the time to wake up is slowly approaching. Come to think of it, weren't you on breakfast duty today?" Breakfast duty. While everything in front of his eyes were getting dark, Grandmaster's voice, that can't be heard in people's ear, rang out, that after just 100 years, even Mount Hua has become quite interesting. When he opened his eyes, he saw a fat boy shouting to him, while holding a plate of food, "Hey, Baek Un-ho, can't you portion the side dishes properly?" Then we saw Un-ho, who was holding a spoon in his hand, looking at him in confusion. Then he wondered if it was really a dream, but he quickly understood the situation and apologized to the boy by his name. "Sorry Jae-cheol, but meals are originally fixed amounts, so..." But before he finishes, the boy angrily shouted to him, "It would be okay if you ate less, right? Give me some more unless you want to be hit." Seeing the boy's unreasonable behavior, Un-ho gets angry, and thought, "Isn't this guy mid-upper level at best, and he's doing this?" Un-ho thought while clenching his hand, "It's true that I'm still far from the pick, and I'm not like Lee Jun-hyung or Jang Kwon, but do I have to be pushed around by such a guy too?" Then he think to himself, even if he is a top delinquent in your neighborhood, he is not someone who can be pushed around. Then, while making a face full of smiles while holding back his anger, he replied to the boy, "If it's not his doing meal duty, then you'll naturally end up eating less, so he should stop bothering people, and just go, okay?" Hearing his words, the boy, rather than getting calm, he gets even more furious, and white. It seems like he was going to cause a scene there. We hear a voice from behind, calling out to him, "Hey, Ha Jae-cheol, what are you doing now?" Then we saw the red-hair boy Jang Kwon behind him, who was shouting about how pissed he was to wait in line for that guy to serve him breakfast, and while he is blocking the line for others to move forward, while Un-ho remarks from the side that the Mount Hua's top delinquent is someone else. In the other hand, that boy, seeing the red-hair guy, he gets scared, and quickly try to give out an expression, while shuddering, but the red-hair boy was too unreasonable, and shouted to him for not seeing how everyone was waiting behind him. The boy got scared, and run while apologizing to him. But while running, he coldly glared at our main character, and threatened him, "You better watch your back, Baek Un-ho." But Un-ho just smiled at him, and thought, there are 173rd generation disciples. And since there's not much going on, he'll probably forget about it in a few days, right? Or so he thought. Then the scene shifted, and we saw an old man shouting to the disciple, "Now, let's have a practical application of the lecture content." For the realist battle experience in Mount Hua, sect leader Nam Gu-sien's lectures were the most useful and my favorite, but this time, I told you to watch your back. Un-ho thought to himself, "Well, I kind of expected this during breakfast earlier, but somehow, I'm not afraid. That's right, after all, my opponent is just my peer." Then we can see an image of Grandmaster holding a sword, appearing behind the boy. Then, with a determined look in his eye, Un-ho thought, after experiencing swordplay with Grandmaster Tae Seijo in my dreams, I can do it. While his actions only make the boy even angrier, he thought, how dare. Unlike us, who were selected through our martial arts, he's just someone who got lucky and entered Mount Hua. He's the weakest loser, and yet, he dares to be so arrogant. I'll put you in your place. Baek Un-ho, surely you're not relying on Jang Kwon, are you? To Kwon, you're just a stepping stone. Why not just bow down and beg for forgiveness now? Forgiveness? Have you done something significant enough for me to beg for it from you? He talks big. Then again, he grew up receiving all sorts of support ever since he was young. He must think he's different from the likes of me. Baek Un-ho. The fight seems to be escalating. Just leave them be. I don't know what's going on, but if we interfere, it might cause more problems behind the scenes. It's better to let them vent their emotions at an official event where we can intervene. No, never mind, what's going on? Nobody's trying to stop it. I thought that since they're so meddlesome, they would definitely try to stop this too. Are you getting scared now? JCHEOL, no. Does this look like fair to you? Perhaps it's a good thing. Is your head just for decoration? No. If your face gets damaged to a certain extent, it won't even be useful as a decoration. This damn dog. As expected, he charges like a wild boar at the slightest provocation. He looks fierce and formidable due to his size, but he doesn't strike me as a sword that can't be handled. Compared to the mysteriousness of Master Tae Seijo, he's just a beast, wildly flailing his massive power. There is a vast difference in both power and internal energy. And sophisticated techniques cannot overcome a power as massive as a mountain, but But in this case, wouldn't it somehow work? Ugh. Not all attacks are always powerful. Every attack has a beginning and an end, if one accurately perceives and strikes the transitions between the initial and final movements. Then in that moment, the power carried by my sword will be stronger than the power carried by HJCHEOLs. Which means I can control the flow of the initial movements. You little rat. He's become even more powerful. But his excitement actually makes him more readable. Ugh. It's effective. His internal energy and muscles have been shielding him from effective strikes, but now, proper hits are landing. Now is the time. Stop. It seems the conclusion has already been reached. The 8-second transformation. If it's the transformation taught by Master Tsa Jo, I can reach even behind that hand. What am I thinking? Yes, I understand, daring to try and attack sect leader Nam. That was insane. Did you see that? Jae Cheol was being one-sidedly beaten up by Baek Un-ho, slacking off in swordsmanship classes, and now he lost against Baek Un-ho. But hey, hasn't Baek Un-ho's swordsmanship improved somewhat? The fight was just one-sided, so what? It takes dozens of blows before a genuine one can manage to land. Apart from the last few blows, even real swords wouldn't have caused a decent bruise. This is somewhat interesting. Where did you learn that, huh? Where did you learn those techniques, Wait, that is, if I said Master Tsa Jo taught me in a dream, then they wouldn't believe me. Initially, even I would have dismissed it as nonsense, so I just came up with them myself, while learning the Napmi sword. You thought of those yourself? Yes, as you can see, I lack talent, so I have no choice but to devise various strategies. Huh. He is small and puny, he probably didn't receive proper nutrition when he was young. His arms and legs are too thin and light, his body, crucial for supporting powerful internal energy, does not suit the principle of using power before the sword. Is he aware of that and thought of this technique himself? He compensated for his deficiencies with good insight and reading moves, but, I see, they do say that necessity is the mother of invention. But in the end, the root of martial arts is internal energy. Don't get too caught up in technique and neglect the fundamentals of martial arts. Yes, I will bear that in mind. Ha ha ha. Truly an interesting story, power before the sword, indeed, to hear such a tale not from a shaman's stories nor from a Buddhist monk's teachings, but here in Mount Hua. But isn't what Master Gu Xian said not wrong? It is an absolute truth that internal energy is the basis of martial arts, rather than flashy initial movements. A steadily built internal energy eventually leads to becoming a master, doesn't it? Well, yeah, it's not wrong. Draw your sword then, huh? You didn't come here just to chat, did you? Come here to chat, did you? So, wait a minute. Since you're going to train me, can't you give me a magic formula from martial arts or some holy elixir, or we're just fighting again? That's funny, you ask me for a magic formula, but I'm already giving it to you. If you train with me, you'll eventually learn it, about the holy elixir. One thing that I realized after I started training with Grandmaster Tsa Jo, is that I'm learning what we practice pretty fast and accurately, but solely on combat. There are things which I can't improve here, like physique, stamina, and mainly, chi. It's innate in every single body, but it needs to be developed, which can take up to 10 years of harsh training to even be noticeable. But if there were an elixir. Even if I use an elixir now, I wouldn't get to Lei Junhyung's level, but it might be enough for me to guarantee a safe spot in the sect, if only I could have one. Are you out of your mind? Don't you have common sense? Do you think that if I had something like that, I would hide it instead of giving it to you right away? Well. And did you finish the homework I gave you? How do I? Of course, what I expected. I wouldn't have given you a homework assignment that could be easily solved. Wield your sword. This is so fun. Stamina and discipline training must be so boring. Maybe strong masters always trained like Grandmaster Tsa Jo. There, a gap. Oops, this is it for today. It ended like that. How could I ever beat him? Baek Un-ho, are you crazy? Are you proud of beating Jae Cheol yesterday? You're ignoring me, huh? By the way, if I keep battling with Grandmaster Tae Seijo like this, will I soon be able to break through Jang Kwang's defense? Because I can't defeat him with the mere strength I have now. Hey, are you thinking about something else again? It looks like it. You need to learn to respect stronger people. Kwang, are you talking about something important? Hyun. Oh no, we're not talking about anything important, we're just chatting. Bullying is chatting now. At our age, we're basically all attracted to that girl. Really, then I'll take Baek Un-ho with me. Why do you want this brat? Me. Brat, we shouldn't use this word among fellow Mount Hua sect's disciples. Hurry up and apologize to Un-ho. Oh, I'm very sorry, Un-ho. I bet you are very sorry. Ouch, see, it's nice to see you two getting along. Well, Un-ho, if you have time, let's talk over there for a while. Is that okay? Yeah. Let's go. Wait, out of nowhere. Sorry. It's just that I was in a hurry. I looked for you all day yesterday, but I couldn't find where you went. Yesterday, I had a little trouble, but why are you saying sorry? Didn't I interrupt you while you were trying to fight that boar, a boar? Even though he looked like that, he's the guy that Cho Ja-suk, the great disciple of the elder Jin Muok, has taken as his disciple. With a face like that, boar is really an appropriate nickname. Unlike that guy from yesterday, the boar is a little more difficult to defeat. Me, beat up Jang Kwang, are you out of your mind? An elder Jin Muok is one of the strongest people in the Mount Hua sect. He's already a disciple of such a person. The gap between me and him is gigantic. Well, even if he has qualities, he's just a boar. Don't you want to defeat him? By the looks of it, you haven't been practicing for a day or two. What, you're playing dumb? You know, I'm not from a specific sect, and the Mount Hua sect is not affiliated with the Chi sect. My mother and father are from different sects. One of them is from the Sword sect and the other from the Chi sect, but as of now, no upper head discovered it. No, I think it's safe to say that the Mount Hua sect is too intolerant right now. Hey! Chi sect, Sword sect, all of these, who are they? Are you really going to pretend you don't know until the end? Yes, yesterday's sword techniques are those of the Sword sect. This one, and this one too. The ones I used yesterday, that I learned from Grandmaster Tae Seijo. Wait, those are all techniques from the Sword sect. Yes, you don't mean to tell me you've mastered them without knowing that. Even if it looks like simple sword movements, judging by your smoothness, you've been practicing them for a long time. Then, all those things you showed me in your dreams, are they all sword techniques? What is the difference between a sword technique and a martial arts technique? One is based on repetition plus accuracy, and the other purely on chi and its practice. Is that it? You really practiced without knowing. The person who taught you the sword technique didn't tell you that. Hyun, I think you misunderstood something. I've never been taught anything by anyone. I can't just tell her that a grandmaster taught me it in a dream. Then you taught yourself. If you're that much of a genius, you should be able to handle this, right? This is Grandmaster Tae Seijo's homework. The answer to the question is Grandmaster Tae Seijo's homework. The answer to the question is the basic concepts of the Nampi sword are enough for a fight. Arg, you saw through it. And you dare to say this is just a basic technique with no practice. Let's see, next time we meet, I'm going to strip you to the bone and make you admit it. Hey, wait. I was gonna ask you a little more about those sword sect techniques, by the way. The blossom scent was coming from her. Kwang, when is the internal tournament, HM? The last one was 2 months and a day ago, so it should be within a month. I guess we need to deal with him before that, in front of the other kids. Baek Un-ho, why do you want to deal with that weakling? Is it because of his sudden upgrade in strength? I was planning to take care of him myself, can't I handle it instead? That Baek Un-ho bastard, you should just know that, and the one dealing with him will be you, Kwang. I fell asleep and here I am again. I got used to it. Grandmaster, I want to ask you something. Do you think I'm talented at using a sword? Talented? I don't know. Well, if you continue to train with me, you'll eventually be able to be a teenage master, so I can only become a teenage master. What, a teenage master? Not just in the Mount Hua sect, but in all the Murim. Well, what would be the point of being a teenage master solely in the Mount Hua sect? Well, primarily, no, only in the sect. But if you keep training with the best in the world, you'll eventually become a teenage master in the whole Murim after a long time. Well, that's true, but I'll still be a teenage master in Mount Hua. Am I a genius? Ha ha. I guess I'm talented. Well, you can keep up with them, and if you weren't talented in the first place, you wouldn't be here, and you wouldn't even pass the first trial. Is this about the homework? Forget it, pick up your sword. You're fighting again with that girl in a few days, won't you? Your victory today was due to your ability to utilize martial arts itself and your ability to instinctively fight. It would be a different story if the girl had a sword. It would be hard, and she probably would have won. Gulp. I have 3 days to practice, to defeat the prodigy Hyeon. Will I be able to? I don't know. But one thing is for sure, instead of this useless chit-chat, we need to improve your sword skills. Hey, attention. Right now, I'm challenging Baek Un-ho to a fight. Me? Why, are you afraid? I'm going to show you real power. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Is this asshole crazy? Do you think I'm asking? It was an order, or did you get cocky after beating Ha Jae-cheol? Have you forgotten how I've used to beat your ass before? We can refuse challenges because of the rules of the Mount Hua sect, but it's a different story if there's a crowd. A kid who refuses a challenge, I guess he isn't suited to fight. He knows that if he asks me like this, I can't refuse. Ha 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 ha. He probably wants to humiliate me in public. Maybe that whole talent thing was just a lie. Because it seems like I'm still the underdog after all. But the answer is simple. I thought you looked like a boar because of your appearance, but your brain is if a boar's too. If only I had the strength to fight back. Did you think I was going to bow to you and act? Boar, what? You won't just let this pass, will you? You're going crazy. What I'm talking about is common sense and rationality. This crazy bastard. Do you want to fucking die? Ah, I see. Having a boar's brain, you don't understand our language. Do you? Ugh, you should have thought about this possibility. Now. A gap. Even though I've hit a gap, it's not that big of a damage. The weight and strength difference is just too wide. I don't think I should keep fighting, maybe if I use my sword. Jang Kwang, Baek Un-ho, what are you doing? You're so lucky. So. I'll actually have to deal with Jang Kwang. Okay, I see, that boar and Junhyung seem strong. But you remember, right, we have a promise, you can't simply break it, that's ridiculous. But it's not like I'm not doing it, I'm just postponing it for once, right? You were the one who made the promise in the first place. If you think about it, why shouldn't I be able to just postpone it? That's true, you're harder to gaslight than I thought. Normally, people just accept. Oh, it makes sense, people don't refuse anything because you're pretty. Gosh. I was talking about my authority as an important person's daughter. Do you really think I'm pretty? Well, it's true that you're pretty. What? Shut up for once. I'm not that good at compliments. You were the one who asked. Why are you acting like that? Forget it. After you beat Jang Kwang, it'll be my turn, so take care, okay? And also, she always smells so damn good. Children from here. Better than the last generation. We have some pretty good martial artists this time. Mount Hua sect elder, Lee Jin-seop. Junhyung is much better than I thought. He's only 13 and has already fully absorbed all elixirs he received. At this rate, he'll soon grow stronger than Gong Yachan. Speaking of which, is he still that strong? Mount Hua sect master, Gong Won-tak. Ugh, he is still strong, judging by how he got possessed by a sword once. Speaking of which, why don't you join us for a fighting event that's coming up? I'm sure the children will be overjoyed if you're there. I'd be glad to. By the way, I saw some kids that stood out from the rest on the way here. There was also a child who was bigger than a full-grown adult. Ah, you mean Jang Kwang. It's said that he has a strong constitution and is good at both Qi and martial arts. It is said that the Qin family has kept an eye on him. The Qin family's martial arts would be a great fit for him. Who'll he be sparring with? Ah, that kid, Baek Un-ho. He's a survivor of the Joga village incident in Yeonan County. We are taking special care of him because of Baek Un-ho's last words. I don't know why they're fighting, since he and Kwang have very different levels in strength. Well, since he's a disciple of Mount Hua, he should be able to take care of himself. From what I've heard from my grandson, he has improved a little, but nothing too absurd. It's unfortunate about his qualifications, but he's also a disciple of the Mount Hua sect. We shouldn't underestimate him. I'll trust your intuition, ha ha ha. It's not a big deal. Moreover, why don't we talk about the day of the match? Hey, are you lost or something? You couldn't sleep well because of anxiety. You look even worse than I do. No, I'm pretty sure. Your face always looked messed up, didn't it? This bastard really. He's falling for my provocations. No way, I've always been the underdog, so he must be confused because I'm not acting like one. I've been rolling in the dirt for years, unlike you. Do you think I'd just give up? Is this an advantage? What the hell is wrong with you anyway? What? No, listen. I always did everything you told me to. Shouldn't I be treated with some kindness? Why do you want to beat me up so much? What? Because, of course. He's concentrating on my sword. I have a chance. How cowardly of you. I don't care. What's the point in talking to you if you're just going to talk nonsense anyways? Why don't you stop nagging me and draw your sword, you bore? That was a good one. I'll draw my sword, you asshole. The sword that was given to the third generation of disciples is a sword that hasn't been sharpened yet. But that doesn't mean it's harmless. Guys like Lee Junhyung and Jang Kwang, who are strong as hell, can even cut logs in half with this sword. I can, at best, cut through a stick as thick as my skinny wrist. So, that sword has haunted me ever since I joined the Mount Hua sect. But now, it's just too easy. How, with such a shitty sword? How, with such a shitty sword? It must have been luck, shitty sword. You're not wrong, but it's already enough to block your strikes. How? Don't worry, they're still just children, right? If it gets too dangerous, there are older disciples standing by to stop them. Of course, the young man is immature, so his control isn't perfect. What you're worried about won't happen. It's an unmanned sword after all, isn't it? He was originally a priest with no great talent for martial arts. I'm not saying I don't recognize his power, but I don't think he can analyze the situation better than I can. That kid, Un-ho, is he the one Baek Un-ho so cared for? Wait, you don't mean? Oh God, I don't know. I'll try to find out as soon as this is over. This is fun. Against Tisajo, I couldn't do whatever I wanted. There was only one thing I could do to prevent my loss. But against Jang Kwang, there are dozens of things I can do without getting punished. It's still fun, but definitely not as much. He probably thinks he's controlling the battle. But what's really happening is the other way around. I can see the flow of the duel. He just has a simple sword with no variables. Even in a sloppy stance, I can still dodge. You fucking rat. In his 16th slash, he concentrates his strength in the index finger. Ack, here he comes. With a slight variable. He's not as strong as I expected. Now, the feeling that he once knew as anger is starting to get replaced with fear. So now, it's time to counterattack begins. How could you? How could you do this to me, you bastard? Don't be ridiculous.